Jai Hind. It's too low. I think we're all sleeping. Jai Hind. That's it. So we start the presentations normally in the afternoon session this way, because most of us, I was sleeping there actually, because after a wonderful lunch which was organized by the MIT, we do tend to fall asleep. Good afternoon, Guten Tag. I only know one word in German, which is Guten Tag. I learned it about 40 years ago. Again, Jai Hind. My sincere thanks to Shri Pradeep Wagh and his team for having invited me to share my thoughts on this very important subject known as winning the hearts and minds of people. I am also thankful to the ambassador that he did cover some of my topics, so I will try to condense it to the extent feasible. We are having this international symposium led by the chairperson, Dr. Pradeep Wagh, at a very, very appropriate and significant time. Shri Devare spoke about Brexit, the US elections, and some more elections which are to follow in Europe, maybe France and Dutch. What was he referring to? The concept of war has undergone a sea change in the last 30 years or so. Probably to my mind, the last conventional campaign that we saw was the Arab-Israel War of 1973, and thereafter the whole world has changed. Today, the trend is to fight a proxy war, maybe a low-intensity conflict war. Our adversaries try to fight by remotely lighting a fire, and they make use of state/non-state actors to keep this fire burning. I have been given about 10 minutes to speak, and I shall try to keep it within that timeline. Let me start my presentation by showing you a thought by the renowned philosopher Sri Bertrand Russells. War does not determine who's right or wrong. It only determines who's left. It was said about 200 years ago. This last line, only who's left, is worth its value in gold today, because more and more nations are trying to develop weapons of mass destruction or the nuclear weapons. We have North Korea already into it, Iran, though peaceful till now, and many others are knocking the nuclear weapons. What will be the shape if there is a nuclear strike tomorrow? Only time will tell. What is insurgency? Insurgency is basically a political struggle to get hold of a region. It can be to change governments or to secede a particular part of land and take it to yourself. If the aim is to light a fire and keep it burning, you will require some ingredients to keep this hearth burning. What are the ingredients of this recipe? You require charismatic leadership. Now, the top leadership of any kind of insurgency would be in some different country, because otherwise the host nation will catch them and probably kill them in an encounter, for all you know. So it is the second-rung leader who is trying to promote this culture. He obviously will need recruits who are fighting on his behalf, supplies in terms of arms, ammunition, and the army and also the terrorists always march on its stomach, so they will need food and ration. Safe havens, maybe within the country or outside. Funding, many times extortion, illegal funding, selling charas, ganja, narcotics, which we see in the world today, and support of a very silent majority. if these are the ingredients, there have to be some root causes. And that is why you can fuel insurgency by these people. These are inequalities, which I think Mr. Shende talked about in the morning session, so I will not dwell on it much. It can be in social spheres, economic spheres, communication, infrastructure, etc., medical, and so on. Obviously, no government is going to keep quiet. They would take measures to quell or neutralize the insurgency, and coin or counter-insurgency is the aim or the effort of the government to quell this insurgency which is breeding. And we try to do it by addressing the root cause. What are the coin characteristics? It's a complex effort that integrates civilian and military efforts to address the perceived voids, which we said may be in terms of infrastructure, medical, educational, they don't have enough livelihood, etc. And it focuses on controlling the population. There are two basic approaches to counterinsurgency. One is the enemy-centric, and the second is population-centric. We have to have a mix of these two if you have to win the hearts and minds of the people, because no way can an armed force quell the entire insurgency issue. There are root causes to be addressed. So the mix of that is the order of the day. You will consider counterinsurgency successful if the writ of the government is re-established. Basically, the existing government will have to sit down with the leaders, talk to them, and take the movement forward and bring them back into our fold by giving certain concessions which we have seen in our country. So, counterinsurgency will be considered successful if the government writ is rewritten. What are the basic things which we would like to do in counterinsurgency? There are 4 pillars. One is information. As my chairperson brought out, information today is freely flowing. WhatsApp, mail. And these are destructive elements because WhatsApp can spread a rumor like fire. There have been some Chinese thinkers like Sun Tzu who said that if you know yourself, you will win half a battle. If you know yourself and your enemy, you will win every battle. But if you don't know yourself and you don't know your enemy also, you will win no battle. So that is the kind of information which is needed today and we should have to fight even counterinsurgency. Second is security. Security from two aspects. One is the government assets in terms of electricity. If you can have the assets of the government protected, where you can have the live media, the electronic media in terms of television, internet functioning, it will be a great deal. Secondly, it is the protection of the individual assets. There is no extortion. The insurgents are not literally making the people hostage to giving them funds for keeping them alive. The next is a political strategy. Obviously, as I said, insurgency is a political struggle. So if you want to counter it, there has to be a political strategy by the existing government to counter it. And the political strategy will invariably lead to economics. As Sri Devre brought out, that economics today is the order of the day. And unless you can address the root causes, like if there is no school, there is no administration, or there are lesser places where people can study and go for their livelihood, all this will come in terms of economic development of that particular region, which will go a long way in getting the main population back to your own self. Now, I'll talk something about India as far as insurgency is concerned. Right from the birth of our nation in 1947, we have faced insurgency. And the areas which we have dwelt or dealt with are the Northeast from 1955 to 1965 or thereabout, Punjab for about 7 to 8 years from 1982 to about 1990, Sri Lanka 1987-90, J&K, it started in 1947, immediately after our independence, when our adversary on the Western Front tried to incite the population and puts his own army in the guise of civilians and tried to create a rebellion, and we are today still infested with that problem. Naxalism, Maoism, is a very current one and is practically located in the center of our country. That is, certain parts of Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh and Orissa are facing this kind of problem today. What has been the effect of this insurgency on our country? We have lost, or the casualties have been about 1 lakh or so. And the people who have died, whether they were our own forces, the civilians who got caught in the crossfire, or even the terrorists, is to the tune about 44,000 people. This is what the Indian government officially claims, and therefore I am showing this slide. We have lost 2 prime ministers, Srimati Indira Gandhi after the Sikh problem arose. We have lost Sri Rajiv Gandhi to the LTTE. We have had Kargil in 1919, and again Kashmir-centric from our adversary in the western side, who put his own army men in the guile of Lashkars and said they were freedom fighters. Mumbai, so-called the economic capital of India, has been struck many a times, at least 3-4 times, the last being an international strike against many people, which had the Taj Hotel and the Oberoi Hotel also being besieged by some so-called non-state actors. And today non-state actors are playing a very, very vital role in this kind of atmosphere that we are facing the world today. The attack in the Indian Parliament in 2001, which nearly took us to war with our Western adversary, what has been the Indian response? The Indian response has been mixed. We have tried to talk to our neighbors, denied them safe havens. We have tried to do economic development. We have poured a lot of money there, especially in Kashmir. And many others say the Punjab problem was sorted out by Sri Rajiv Gandhi by sitting with a host of political leaders, and a number of them gave their lives. I will mention 2, Sri Biren Singh, who was the Chief Minister of Punjab, and Sri Harcharan Singh Longowal, Sant Harcharan Singh Longowal, who died because he really signed that peace accord with our erstwhile late Prime Minister Sri Rajiv Gandhi. What has been the army's doctrine? By and large, the army has been called out to play this vital role in combating insurgency which has happened in our country. The army doctrine has been very clear. Iron fist in a velvet glove. I will expand on it in the next slide. Use of minimal force. Protect mass population against insurgents. As I said, the mass populations have to be protected for their property, for extortion, etc., and that is the role which the army is trying to play. And finally, winning the hearts and minds of the local population. Over a period of time, the Indian army learnt its own lesson and gave this as the order of the day when troops were to be committed to insurgency operations. Can I have the mic, please? You must remember that all the people in which you are operating are fellow Indians, and the very fact they are different and yet part of India is a reflection of India's greatness. Some of these people are misguided. Quote, some of these people are misguided and have taken to arms against their own people and are disrupting the peace in this area. You have to protect the mass of the people from these disruptive elements. You are not there to fight the people in the area, but to protect them. You are fighting only those who threaten the people and who are a danger to the lives and properties of the people. You must therefore do everything possible to win their confidence and respect and to help them feel that they belong to India. This is the daily Part 1 order which is being given to troops when they are given to areas where there is insurgency. The present situation as it stands, Northeast has been totally eradicated, Punjab has been totally eradicated, Sri Lanka was a very bitter experience. We went there at the invitation of the government as a peacekeeping force, but honorably we disengaged somewhere in 1990. Maoism and J&K is still burning and it needs the attention of the government of the day. What are the limitations which the Indian Army faces when it is operating in an insurgent area? There are 2-3 factors. One is the central government. The Home Ministry and the Defense Ministry are 2 pillars of the same central government. The Indian Army is working under the directives of the Raksha Mantri, whereas the central armed forces like the BSF, the CISF, the CRPF and other protection forces, they are working under the Graha Mantri or the Home Minister or the Interior Ministry. Then we have the states which are actually undergoing insurgency. They have their own state police, they have their own home guards, they have their own intelligence. They are also trying to quell the same insurgency, and there are cross purposes. There is something known as I should be one up on the other one. There is lack of intelligence that is not being shared between the 2 states. Like I said, Maoism today is affecting Maharashtra, it is affecting Andhra Pradesh and maybe even Orissa. So the insurgents can cross over. What the police of Orissa get to know is not very quickly told to Andhra Pradesh or Maharashtra to quell them. Center gives a lot of funding. That fund is not utilized for the economic development of that particular region. These are some of the areas which we will need to address, and maybe more attention needs to be focused by the central government and the state governments. What does winning the heart and minds of the people mean when you are actually there? I have listed it on a slide. Improve the living conditions. Some of them was covered by my very good friend Sri Shende in terms of water, sanitation, education, skill development centers, building bridges, adopting children. This is a very good thing which has happened in the Indian Army. They are adopting the children whose parents have lost their lives due to terrorism. Then they are handed over to the state government or the central government for their further education. And then they are trying to rehabilitate back. I would take your mind back that in the last, I think, IAS, IFS, IPS examination, it was a Kashmiri boy who came first, and the government of India went all out to make a propaganda war saying, here is it, that in J&K we have a good boy who comes first and now comes into the whatever service, it may be IFS, IAS. So we need to promote these boys. We need to get them out of their states and give them their due as far as coaching, etc. is concerned. Veterinary cover. Obviously, they are not so good as far as economics is concerned. They have their own livestock. They have goats, they have buffaloes, cows. All that the army can do because they have got mules in their own vicinity, and we have got something known as the Remount Veterinary Corps, which is doing yeoman's work out there. Assistance in natural calamities. Nepal was talked out. I would only say that the Indian Army was there within, I think, 12 hours of the unfortunate incidents which happened in 2015, and even 2-3 times in J&K, or even last year in Tamil Nadu, Bihar, wherever there are floods or there is an earthquake or any other natural calamity, the army has been put out and they have done a wonderful job. What can this very good Rotarians, though I don't belong to it, do? I would say, please adopt a village, create educational facilities, basic needs like clothing, you have done it somewhere, housing, shelter, etc. Health management, Water management. The next war is going to be on water. Let me assure you, gentlemen, the next war is on water. When our Prime Minister just said that I can look at the Indus Treaty, there was a huge thing that we got nuclear warheads with us from the other side. So water is going to be a very big player in the next 20, 30 years. Adopt a child, as I said. And one thing I really forgot to mention, and I realized it today morning, is that we have seen in the last 5, 6 months that a lot of schools in J&K have been burned maybe by design, many of them, or maybe accidentally. Why don't we all get together and put at least 2, 3 schools in order so that the children who violently protested when one of their schools was being taken for some other work that they want to study, get their atmosphere back for studying. With that, I come to the end of my small talk. Thank you. Jai Hind once again.